Greetings, friends of the apocalypse. This is Podcast at Ground Zero, episode 54, Posthuman board game. We are going to be talking about the Posthuman board game, which is an apocalyptic board game. I am Jared, the Apocalypse Nerd Wallace. He is Adam Bomb Glancy, and special guest, we are having Sean Brown from Mr. B Games, who was the co-publisher of the Posthuman board game, which was a very successful Kickstarter that launched it. And for those of you who haven't never seen it, here I have my monstrosity of a game here. This thing, how much does this weigh with all the expansions, Sean? This is a couple pounds right here, about 5 pounds.
5 pounds, yep.
Yeah. Oh, see, I paid attention. It's a very big game. It is a tile and card.
5 pounds. The post office must have loved you guys.
Oh.
Yeah.
So we are going to be talking about this game because, again, I was a backer myself on the Kickstarter.
Much appreciated, by the way.
Oh, you're very welcome. Very welcome. Again, as you know, on this show, we love all things and talk about all things the apocalypse. So I thought this would be a good thing to cover. Because it's not. I mean, there is apocalyptic games out there, but as much as we have board games. So, but at least they're not right now. But I thought this was a really cool one. Very interesting concept. The only thing we're going to start here in just a second. The only thing I'm going to do off topic is because I keep on forgetting to show this was I want to show Scott and the audience something my wife had gotten me for Christmas. She had gotten me these. There's a company that makes these minimalist movie posters, and they're made out of metal. They're really cool, and she had got me the minimalist movie posters for The Road Warrior and Mad Max.
You're getting a little reflection off them, but I can see the silhouette. So that's a metal sheet.
That is metal right there. It's metal,
okay.
And I got to hang it with a magnet. I still haven't taken them out of the wrapper. So
those look good. You get a little reflection off them, but I can see the silhouette. So that's a metal sheet. That is metal right there. It's metal. We're getting a little feedback, sir.
I still haven't taken them out of the wrapper.
So. Okay, who's got the podcast open? Sean, you have it open in another window?
Yes.
All right, you gotta not do that.
No, that was that other link you guys sent me.
Oh, okay. All right. So there you go. There's the delay apparently of how long it takes for it to go live. So yeah.
So all those F-bombs, right, that I dropped, they're all gone now.
No, they're never gone.
No, we don't edit. We're too lazy.
We curse like sailors. So and I had made it that it is explicit on iTunes, so they can't give me any gruff. I mean, not that we're like fuckity fuck all the time, but we do curse. So.
Sure.
All right, so
the only person we've ever edited for is James Ward, and as much as we like you, you're no James Ward.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to show everybody that. Okay, so Posthuman, the board game, like I said, it's a pretty big box. It is a post-apocalyptic. It is, I'll show just a couple things real quick for the viewers. It comes with this really nice, folding play mat here. I'll just show that real quick here. Of course, the people who are just listening to the audio will never see that. And the game comes with a boatload of components: tiles, cards, falling chits, meeples, all kinds of really good stuff in this game. It comes with custom dice, custom chits, markers. It's got the play card, the player cards. So it had a lot of stuff in it. So we're going to talk about the game. So the first question I'm going to ask you is just, Sean, give us an overview. I talked about it a little bit, but give us an overview of what the game is. What is Posthuman?
So the concept of Posthuman is that you're one of the last few human survivors in the post-apocalyptic world, and you've heard a rumor of this last human city, this fortress, and it's kind of like the place to be, and they're not taking any new people, but the thought process is if you get there and you're one of the first ones to get in there, maybe you can still get a spot, maybe you can get inside and kind of have a better life. And that's kind of what sets the tone. So all the players are human survivors, and they're all trying to be the first person to get in there to kind of, try to get out before all the other mutants get around and take you over.
Cool, very good. Scott, you muted.
Still muted. He's waving us. He doesn't like us.
He doesn't want to. He's still talking.
I'm waving you off. Continue. I'll get to my question later.
Okay. No, answer.
Yeah. So along the way, along your journey, you're going to run into all kinds of different challenges, mental challenges, physical challenges, fights. You're going to run across other bad humans, mutants, things along this line. And as you kind of go along, you can sort of level up your character. You can start to increase your stats, get stronger, and also you'll start to take on scars as the game progresses. And you take on too many scars, then you'll turn post-human as well. And then the goal of your game will change to actually being like the game itself. So your goal will be to stop all the other humans from trying to get to the fortress.
So scars are basically just kind of mutations?
Yeah. So what'll happen is every time you get scratched, you'll get a card. And sometimes they'll say just a scratch, nothing happens. But sometimes they'll say mutated leg or super strength, or you get some kind of thing. And actually, as you play, sometimes you get some really good combinations, and you become a really powerful mutant. So you can voluntarily choose, after you get a few scars, you can voluntarily choose to mutate and try to stop everybody. Or you can wait till the bitter end until you get to the very last scar where it's mandatory.
So it's not just a game of race the other players. It's also a game of race the clock for the individual player who's running out their tether of being human, and then it turns into a game of fuck your neighbor?
I always say that it's one of those where I think a lot of times when I play the game, it's hard to explain, until you get a few plays under your belt. But what'll happen a lot is people tend to not help each other, right? They don't tend to trade bullets or food, and they see one of their opponents, and he got a bad draw, right? He got a couple of bad, really nasty guys, and used up all his bullets. He ain't got any food. He's way back behind, and people will just be like, "Screw you, pal," and that's the worst strategy in the game because that guy will turn. And when he turns, he's going to come after you. So you're always, at least in my mind, better off to trade with someone.
Well, I was thinking it becomes fuck your neighbor once you turn. You become
yeah, absolutely.
But what you just went into is actually very fascinating because I like the idea that the game does not necessarily appear to be on its surface to have any cooperative qualities, and yet there is still is it an unwritten motivation? I mean, is it intrinsic to? I didn't remember reading that in the rules that hey, maybe it's not such a bad idea to not let everyone fail or let players fail completely because the game gets harder.
Sure. And one of the things we wanted with the experience is we wanted people to experience it themselves. For me, once you play it once or twice and you get spanked hard, you start to think about it a little differently. Because I've heard people say, "Oh yeah, just pick a character with a great melee and just run as fast as you can, and move as quickly as you can, do as many encounters as you can, beat up as many people as you can." But I've played the nun many a times, and I've done a ton of mental challenges and picked up followers and had them do my bidding for me, and just kind of hung in the background and have won that way and been very successful playing untraditional. And I think that's the key. What always keeps bringing me back to playing it. I've been playing it on the convention circuit for almost a year now, in some capacity. Demo capacity, early playtest capacity, production proof, and I play a different character every time, and I play a different strategy, and I've yet to find one that I think is the killer strategy. I tend to enjoy every time, every version I play.
Well, that would be a weakness. I mean, if you had, this character, you take him every time, and I have that actually sounds like a terrible weakness for a game. If you haven't been able to develop, if there's somebody who didn't end up accidentally weighted in the mechanics as being, and it's tough. That is a tough thing to do in a board game, is to create these these pieces, you know, in that is say a board game in the sense of say Talisman or Arkham Horror or any of these things where you build a character, you know,
Sure.
during the course of the game. It's really tough not to accidentally have the math come out, you know, and the gameplay come out to favor one or the other. That's a tough call. If you guys have been able to get it so you have been able to find one, that's a really good recommendation to me.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, I definitely agree with people's assessment that the melee characters on the surface appear to have a better path, but you know, for me personally, I find that a challenge to try a character that's not heavy in melee and see if I can, you know, kind of unravel the other depth of the game. And for me, you know, that becomes part of the challenge too. You know, and with anything, I've seen a character. You know, I've seen somebody play in a game where they take a melee character and they just take off running, and they get an incredible string of luck. You know, really, really good rolls. There's no way you can stop good rolls. The guy just makes all of his rolls, knocks out all of his people. You know, it's going to happen. But I've also seen melee characters who don't get very good rolls and who turn posthuman very quickly. So I find that the game rewards safe play, like incremental, you know, going out there and kind of testing the waters, as opposed to running. But, you know, your mileage may vary, right? Some people will find that the running approach works for them. It really depends on the group and knowing the people you're playing with. So when I play with my friends in my game group, you know, that we've played multiple times, we play differently than I do against people at a convention. Which, for me, playing at a convention, you're playing with people I've never played before, which is kind of like how it'd be like if I was really surviving, right? Do I really trust that guy? Do I really know he's going to work with me? That's what I dig about the immersion for me.
Now, a question about, you know, you said the players. Now, the game is designed to be with the expansion, so you can either play this with one player or up to six players, correct? With the expansion.
Correct.
So this can be a solo game as well.
It can. It's a very challenging solo game. It's not very forgiving. Now that one does go against a clock. So you have a deck. You shuffle in the fortress card. You know, and you've got X amount of turns to make it, and you know it's race, push, and you don't have a lot of time to screw around in that one. That one you have to take some risks. Just the odds are right the way the fortress card is going to come up. It's staged in the deck. It's you know, it's not going to come up within your third or fourth turn of a card, right? But it is going to come up, and you can see it coming, and you know, and you just have to kind of plan a little bit better for it. The solo game is very, very challenging.
Cool.
But you know, it doesn't have the train element, but you know, I think in general there's still a lot of, you know, it feels like an RPG to me, almost like a computer RPG. You know, I'm leveling up my character, I'm picking my skills carefully, and I'm plotting my path carefully.
Well, let me ask you a couple of questions about. I kind of want to get into the mechanics, but I feel like that's going to sort of bury the people who haven't looked at the rules. So I'm going to try and shoot something out here that's a little more general. Now I know you were the publisher, and the two guys who are the designers are named what for the audience?
So it's one person was the sole designer, Gordon Kalea.
Okay.
And he's from Mighty Box Games, and they're based out of Malta. And
they're based out of where?
Out of Malta.
As in the island of?
As in the little tiny island where most people have never heard of it unless they know Richard Hamm from Rado runs through, right? Because he's also on Malta. So.
Okay, this is a Maltese game. That was something I was not aware of, and I think okay. So the island that produced the Knights of Malta, the Falcon, a brilliant resistance against the fascists in World War II, and then this game. That's Malta.
That's who we got. That's my interpretation of Malta, and they have good beer.
So let me tag on to that then. So since they created from Mighty Box Game, he created the game. Can you tell us anything about what inspired him to create the game? Do you know anything about a little bit of his background on that?
I do. You know, Gordon's a pretty talented guy. He's been doing lots of different things. He had ran lots of different campaigns of role player, and just was a big fan of the genre and wanted to do something in it that wasn't zombie related, kind of take it more to a different, more about the survival itself. And then also the guys at Mighty Box are app developers, so they're working on digital things. And Posthuman started out as a digital game, and they had been putting lots of time and effort into making this digital game. And one of their friends suggested, hey, you could probably turn this into a tabletop pretty easily, and I think it would be very successful. And that kind of turned to them shopping it around because, they're app guys. So they're like, well, we don't know how to make a board game. We'll look for some help. And so they kind of put the bug out there to a few rather large companies who I don't know if it was bad timing or not in their portfolio or whatnot. And luckily for me, one of my buddies at one of these other, media sources or whatever had mentioned, well, hey, we know Sean, right? He loves working with people, and he might be able to help you guys out. And they contacted me, and I looked at the game. I fell in love with it immediately, and I just, I said, if you guys aren't going to do this, I'll sign it outright and just, do it on my own, or I'll be happy to be involved in any capacity. I'll help you guys however you want to do it. And so then we decided to, work together. So they helped quite a bit. They were very, very helpful during the campaign. They, provided all the artwork and things of that nature, lots of the playtesting and development. And along the way, I would play and just make little feedback and, little suggestions to them. Hey, this is really difficult. What about this? What about this? And then, they would go in and test it and say, yeah, you're right, that works. Or, hey, no, that didn't work. And the game just progressed from there. And everybody was really, really happy with it at the end. And then we put it up on Kickstarter. And I remember we set an internal goal, I want to say maybe 25,000, 20,000, something like that for the game. And we had planned stretch goals to 50, maybe. And I asked those guys, in your wildest dreams, what does this thing do? And they said, well, if it really picks up and people really get captured by the universe, man, maybe we could do 100,000. But that's pipe dreaming, right? And I was the same way. I was like, well, let's stick with our 50,000 in stretch goals, right? It's hard to make money on Kickstarter, and it's not very many games.
You very easily get into stretch goal creep. Like mission creep, like you just, and there's sort of an expectation, if there is excitement about the game, that you're supposed to just keep adding, stretch goals if you hit a certain number, and I just think people get carried away with that. It's very easy for a developer to keep adding things, especially since if you're adding things during that 30 to 60 days of Kickstarter, you really haven't planned for it. If you get surprised and you've only got, I got 3 stretch goals, that'll be fine, and it blows up and you start adding stuff willy-nilly, that's where people get into trouble every single time.
Well, because a lot of the problem is the Kickstarter people demand, you're making so much money, why aren't we getting more stretch goals? Because it costs more money. It shrinks. Yeah. Just because we're making all this money, that means that many people are buying the core game. It doesn't mean that that's all extra floating around money. Yeah. So because that's what I've always found to be one of the challenges with the Kickstarter seeing is that people really and I'll keep that. People don't really understand the cost of manufacturing. They don't understand the scale, what goes into the scale of manufacturing, especially on small production runs, okay? Because you're not this game. You weren't producing a Monopoly game. You weren't producing 500,000 copies, a million copies, and getting them for pennies a game. You were producing. How many units did you produce on this, Sean?
When we did when we set everything up, we were planning on 1,500 to 3,000, and we had 5,400 backers. So instantly we were like, well, we're doing at least 5,500, right? And then we invested in doing some more because we had a good feeling it would do well at retail and whatnot. So I think we wound up doing just shy of 10,000 on the first print run.
Nice job. Nice job.
It was crazy. It was a really awesome situation to have, but man, all kinds of pitfalls and issues that arise with doing that many prints and shipping that many orders, for sure.
Yeah. Well, the only thing worse than having a Kickstarter fail is to have your Kickstarter succeed.
Yeah, there's some truth to that.
So now, when you were talking about the creation of the game, you talked about not wanting to do they didn't want to do a zombie game. So that would kind of lead me to a question I was kind of thinking of. Well, why did they go with a post-apocalyptic theme? And you kind of touched on that a little bit, saying they were looking more of a survival aspect.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
can you elaborate on that a little bit more, or was that basically what their thought process?
That's just basically what Gordon had told me. That was kind of a genre he liked and kind of a situation where he wanted to go. He was a big fan of RPGs and kind of storytelling and things along those natures, and he just thought that would be a good backdrop, a good arena to tell a story in, and just a fan of the genre. And I was really happy with the picture he painted. I think it's really good, and I kind of mentioned originally it came from an app. So I'm going to drop some super important news on you guys, like literally totally unsolicited, right? The boys at Mighty Box are in the process of they're about ready to start their own campaign here in maybe a week or so for Posthuman Sanctuary, which is the digital version of Posthuman.
Nice. Because I was going to ask you that question, Sean, because you had dropped a hint of that in one of your updates on the Posthuman Kickstarter project, that they were looking to do a digital game as well. And you know what? Now, because you've given us a history of the game, it all makes sense now. It started off as a digital game, went to a board game, had success. Now they're going back and making the digital game. Because I know some of the people on were kind of poo-pooed it a little bit, but I'm looking forward to seeing the digital version of it, and that's very exciting that they're going to be launching that soon. So it's going to be the board game, but in digital format, or is there going to be some differences to it?
It is going to be different. It's going to have similarities, but it's different. I've gotten to see a little bit of sneak peek kind of things on it. What I can tell you is it reminds me of the Telltale games, the Walking Dead ones. To a certain degree. So there's some storytelling. It's got the tough narrative choices, but then it's got some interaction to where you can do the combats. And you're going to see similarities of you're going to roll the blue dice and the red dice when you're shooting at each other and things like this, right? So you're going to have encounters along your way on your journey, and it's going to tell a story. It's pretty slick. It looks pretty slick so far.
You're going to save a lot on shipping. Let's just say that.
This one we're going to save a lot on shipping. I know the boys are very, very happy over there. The guys in Malta are a super amazing machine. I mean, their digital talents are bar none fantastic. They were amazing to work with. They did an amazing video for the game. They were super pros all the way through the process. I'm just happy to be a part of the Posthuman world for them, and I'm super excited for them for the app. For me, really, as far as the app goes, I have basically no dog in that, no dog in that hunt, I guess. I'm just kind of cheering from the sidelines because I'm a fan of the game too, and I'm just happy I get to do the analog version, and I can't wait to see the digital. Now, they are working on a digital app as well that should be done here in a few weeks, actually, for the character sheet. And that's one of the stretch goals we unlocked during the board game campaign. And so they'll do a digital app where basically a guy could build their character, like a custom character.
Yes, all right. I saw that and I got to tell you, that was a really sexy option. In the game, custom building your characters, only because, so many of these games that run on a play piece that is actually a character. That is to say, and I think of, again, the very first one was, I guess, Talisman.
Sure.
But, all the way up through Flying Frogs games like, Last Night on Earth and Fortune and Glory, those things they've done. The first thing that the fans want to do is build their own characters. And if you go to Board Game Geek, those things are filled with where people have repurposed the art and built their own new characters for the games, statted up these things. The idea that you've provided a mechanic with balance, for the players to do that is just awesome. I think people are going to appreciate that.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I think people are going to dig it, and I personally am looking forward to the app because it'll have all the choices, right? It'll know all the rules, how many points you use for character creation, all that stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. Again, I know it was a mixed bunch on the Kickstarter. Some people are like, no, we don't want that. I don't want digital, and some people are like, I'm so excited for it. So again, I saw a very mixed reaction on the Kickstarter to the app. I'm one of the people who was in favor of it myself. So I'm like, yes, I don't mind the combination of digital with the board game because I'll basically just put my little tablet on the table. There's my there's my sheet.
Having the movement towards having digital record keeping, digital logistics for your board game is something that's coming along nicely. Flying Frog had some of that going on with their Golem Arcana game, where they basically created something like a Mech Warrior, except that your iPad keeps track of all the percentages to hit this area. You don't have to do the math.
Right, that was Hairbrain, right? Hairbrain?
Yeah, that was. Yes, Hairbrain Schemes, yes.
Okay, yeah, I thought, okay.
Were you a backer for that by any chance?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We were talking Flying Frog, and you mentioned Flying Frog, and I'm like, wait, I thought Hairbrain did.
No, that was Hairbrain. If I said Flying Frog twice, I'm dead wrong. There are a fair number. There's a fair density of game companies in the Puget Sound area, and they
absolutely.
They all start to look the same after a while.
It always cracks me up too when we're going through like reports or we're setting shipping logs up or whatever, and I'm getting stuff delivered to my house, and I'm looking at the logs, and a lot of these companies, we all know each other, and it's kind of like automatic, right? I see a new game come up from certain companies, and I'm just like, click, click. I don't even, I'm not even really looking at it. I'm just like, oh, they're making it, click, done. And what's cool is they always reciprocate too, and it's a really cool feature. It's a really cool way to stay up to date on games.
Yeah, that is another aspect of Kickstarter. As much as we might complain about things like, stretch goal creep, being aware of what's in the works, and the buzz that is created, you can't beat that for Kickstarter.
No, not at all.
Well, also it's enabling the small guy who has the good idea to get it out there. Like the individual person who couldn't necessarily do it on their own, put it out there. Like there's a Kickstarter I backed for what the hell is that game? Rise of Cthulhu. It was that two-player card game. I love the game. It's a nice, quick, easy two-player game. And I don't think there's enough two-player games out there because a lot of people don't like two-player games. But you know what? Sometimes you don't have a group of people. You just got two people.
Sure.
But I don't think this guy would have ever been able to do it unless he did it through Kickstarter. Now he successfully launched it. He did a second print run, and he launched it through Kickstarter. And now he just launched his an expansion on Kickstarter for it.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, we're in the same boat. I mean, when I've been doing Mr. B Games since 2005, just self-releasing my own games. And then I went to work for a bigger publisher for several years, but shy of a decade or whatever. And I've left because I just saw the Kickstarter phenomenon. I just thought, banks aren't ever going to loan me this money. This is my opportunity. I know.
No, they're never going to understand what the product is.
No, I mean, still to this day they don't, right? I mean, I go into the banks now and do wires, right? And they go like, why do you have all this money in your account, right? And I got it through crowdfunding, and they go, what's that?
Oh my God.
Wait! Did you say it sounded like you said crab funding? So you're up in Alaska doing some fishing?
Yeah. Well, and so I've kind of been back at this for 3 years now, with the emergence of crowdfunding. And the first title I did, we got 1,000 backers, so I was able to go do a 3,000 unit run, which is great. Second game did really well too. I could do the same. I was in the same position. My third and fourth games. I got very small funding, 200 to 300 backers. So I had to go conservative and print, the 1,000, 1,500 small minimum print runs. And they were difficult, right? It was hard to sell, and so I've kind of gone through both sides of the wave, right? Had some early successes where we could do some bigger print runs and get some better costs, and then I had a couple of games where we just, we unlocked one stretch goal kind of a thing, no overfunding, had to do a small print run. They sold out. The games sold well. We didn't reprint them, and then a year later, people go, "How come this game's not available? It's really good." And we go, "Well, I don't know, right? We tried." And but we moved on to the next project, and then we started working with studios. We did a project with the guys at Check Games, some friends of ours, for their Dungeon Lords game, and it was massive success, awesome, really, really good campaign. And that's kind of the genesis of working with other companies for us. We started kind of taking on studios. I started looking at it and saying, well, I can only do so many games a year as Mr. B, but I can help a lot of other people. And that's when the Posthuman guys came. It was like, yep, let's do this, because here's a game they've been working on for a year and a half, 2 years. It was already a video game, right? We could make that jump over to a board game. The guys at Zero Games came to me with Helionox. They had been working on that for a long time. A couple of my old friends over from Eagle Games came to me, and they had some designs that they had been working on. And I was able to just keep going, right? Keep jumping in with some really, really good games. And that's really snowballed for us and for the company. And really, honestly, it's all made possible, I think, because of Kickstarter.
Well, I want to ask you a couple other questions about the mechanics of this game. One of the things that I noticed that was featured in your mechanics that I hadn't seen in a lot of other games, at least not since Advanced Squad Leader, was morale. And again, that is another complicating factor to your record keeping. But I've always enjoyed morale as a factor in RPGs or in. That's a phone in my pocket ringing. I'm such a professional.
I'm going to mute you right now.
So yeah, everybody mute your phones before it's too late.
Well, you just were the one that got unlucky and got caught. That's all.
But I was going to say, morale is always a factor. I would love a mechanic to model as opposed to sort of like referee fiat. I'm always happy when morale is a factor because for both the players and the game itself. And I really like the idea that you included that as one of the mental tests, for getting through the various areas of the game. That was just a piece of it that I was pretty impressed with. But I wanted to also ask you about your tiles, the tile-based map, right? Because you lay out, each one is sort of a surprise.
Sure. Because you lay out you have the tile, Scott, as well as the kind of the track board as well to track your progress, along with also laying the tiles, kind of like, so I guess it kind of pans it almost look like a Carcassonne board almost, but not so friendly, right?
Yeah. So we always use the terminology of the main game board is kind of like the bird's eye, real high up view, like the big giant map overview. So one space on the map might represent 20 miles of terrain, kind of a thing, right? And then your own personal board, the little tiles, is kind of like zooming in on the action. And it's still a big forest, like that tile represents maybe a day's journey to make it through or something along those lines, right? So that was kind of the idea of the tiles, is that they're kind of your road work or your path through, and once you solve a tile or you've moved, some tiles take you several turns to clear, some of them only take a turn, and then you get to advance on the main game board, and that's kind of towards your overall journey. And that mechanic really works out quite well. It's got some nice, interesting play in it. And so, of course, you can always just run willy-nilly into the next area and just draw a random tile, and that's what you have to deal with. Or you can go really cautious and scout each time you go, and then you get to pick the tiles and kind of arrange them the way you want, have a little more control. And I know I see it at cons a lot, is a lot of times people underuse the scout action because it takes a whole turn, and they say, oh, well, these guys are getting way out ahead of me. And I just laugh, and I say, well, they're getting way out ahead of you, and they're painting themselves into terrible corners because they got some really bad tile draws, right? Because they didn't scout. So it's just a style, really, of how you want to play. And And of course, with any game with a random draw or dice rolls or luck, a guy could always get incredibly lucky and draw 5 really good tiles, right, and roll a bunch of really good dice. But as often as that happens, it also not happens.
Yeah,
So,
he can also run straight off a cliff or into a
Yeah.
swarm of mutants. There's no reason why he can't do that.
exactly.
Now, no, I was just gonna add. It's like, so, considering the tiles and the map, mechanics that we're talking about, morale. What do you see anything missing in like other post-apocalyptic type board games that maybe this game provides?
I guess I really like the way this comes together. I mean, other games have done character creation, other games have done, the level up type thing. I just love that this blends all of it together, right? It's got the combat, it's got the, going in and kicking in people's teeth aspect, so it's a little more than a zombicide, right? It's not just, going out and racking up a kill track, right?
Yeah, that's all Zombicide really is. You don't get any advancement for, I don't know, using your head.
Right. Exactly, but I'm sure at some point they'll go there, right? I mean, and there's a time and a place for that, and I find it quite fun sometimes to just stack them up and go. And then Dead of Winter really touched on kind of the other part of it, right? The strategic part of it, to a point, right? But it was also very, I don't know. For me, it was a little. Their narratives were awesome, right? And that's what I loved a lot. And so for Posthuman, when I played it, I was like, oh, they've got the cool kind of narrative idea that was happening there. They've got the fighting that's happening in a Zombicide, but then there's also this kind of rewarded for cautious play, but then also a traitor mechanic, which is nothing new. I mean, Battlestar Galactica, the Fantasy Flight game, did the traitor thing brilliantly. Shadows over Camelot did the traitor thing brilliantly. So, I started seeing all these really cool mechanics that I like in other games that are the focal point of other games, but they were all a little bit in Posthuman, in some version of them. And to me, that's why I really, what I really liked and what I thought were missing. As far as the other post-apoc games, I really like Jason Maxwell's and Richard Launius have got a Defenders of the Last Stand that's really fun. But it's that one key struggle. It's the everybody protect the last city, right? Kind of a thing. Yeah. And you got all these guys coming in, and it's that Mad Max kind of, everybody trying to take out the last city kind of thing. Really cool, but for me it doesn't have all the other aspects that I see. Almost to a lesser degree, possibly Posthuman sort of reminds me sometimes of when I would play Fallout at times.
Well, what game?
Never heard of it, right?
Yeah.
We've never heard of it, and we never talk about Fallout on the show ever.
I'm not supposed to look at, read about, or play any Fallout until I get done with a Kickstarter I'm in the middle of.
Well, you can't play the new Fallout, Scott. You don't have the right machine for it.
That's true. But I also can't run out and buy it. So I am keeping my nose to the grindstone on Horrors of War and hoping that if nothing else, my desire to play Fallout will force me to finish the Kickstarter and make everybody happy. I hope.
I have intentionally stayed away from it. I will eventually, when all of my other projects are wrapped, which will be shortly, then I will go into a dark cave somewhere with Fallout 4.
I've had friends who actually scheduled a vacation when New Vegas dropped. That was they just put in 2 weeks. I'm gonna be gone for 2 weeks. Where are you going? Vegas. Oh, really? Okay. The boss understood that. Not only the boss would have understood. I'm gonna be on my couch, surrounded by empty pizza boxes.
Fallout 3 was so amazing that I can't. And I see the stuff from 4, and I just go.
3 was amazing. I probably clocked in 400 plus hours on 3. I didn't care for New Vegas. I don't know why. It didn't click with me because it was
Heretic!
Because it was a different different producer, I guess. But
yeah.
this one, my wife's probably going to divorce me because of this game. So,
But you and the game will settle down and live happily ever after.
Yes, but yeah. So another quick, short question. Let's make this a short. It doesn't have to be an elaborate answer. Is like about how long did the project itself take? I guess. Well, you said they were developing it for about a year and a half. The board game. So from the time you picked up the ball from that year and a half, what was the time for getting it, play testing it, getting on Kickstarter, getting it produced, and getting it out there? How on top of that year and a half development they already had? About how much more time did that take?
From the time we first started talking about it until the time we ran it, about 3 months.
Wow.
So and then the Kickstarter, you launched it, funded in a month, and then how long after close of the project till backers started getting them in hand?
Basically 6.5 months. Somewhere in there, probably closer to 7.
That's light speed on Kickstarter.
Yeah, especially considering everything that's here. 5 pound box. So
that's amazing.
I mean, a lot of that is the credit to Mighty Box. I mean, they had gotten the game so far down the road that by the time I got to see it, right, I was just like, this thing is ready to go, right? I mean, it was. And they knew it, right? Because, well, they've been working on this app, and this was right as they're doing app testing, they were literally printing these things out and playing it on their tabletop, right? Mapping out things for their app before they programmed it. And somebody said, this is almost a board game, right? And then they kind of took that and started working on it, and then that was kind of the theory was, well, if we're really onto something here as a board game, then we do that first, and then if we go back to the app, then maybe people will really dig it. And I think it was just brilliantly played by Mighty Box, and I really am. I'm super fortunate and very happy to have met them, and very, very honored to be their partner in the USA.
Excellent. So that all being said, just give us again just a recap of or an overview of what kind of challenges did you encounter with the Kickstarter production? Anything that was particularly odious or even anything besides just what was a challenge, what went really well for you as well to kind of let's make that compliment sandwich so
sure. No, I'd say probably the campaign overall went well. The backers were great. We got the files off to the factory pretty quickly. We got the proofs back pretty quickly. We hit some production delays. There were a couple of holidays in China that I learned about that I didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
That I knew of most of them, but there were a few I just wasn't aware of. And, those hit you for a little bit of time. We originally planned on shipping before Essen and debuting the game in Essen. It just didn't work out that way. We wound up air shipping some copies to Essen because we'd already paid for the booth, back in May, kind of a thing. And that was a mistake, honestly. Trying to deliver copies to people overseas because we really thought the game, right? Our factory told us the games were on the water heading to the US and the EU. We had set up 2 different fulfillment warehouses. We ultimately ended up with 4 centers to help us mail them. But at the time, we had the big containers were going to 2 different facilities, and then we were going to break them up to the other 2. And which worked out great. That portion worked out great. But it was just this, having it there at Essen and thinking like, oh, this is going to be here in a couple of weeks. And then, we got hit in customs and got a little delay on the water. Things didn't get out of China the right way. A couple things didn't get booked on the boat. And then we got it into the U.S., and it was a little later than we planned, and then we were hitting the peak holiday season, which I always tell people, don't ever try to ship a game in December. It's just killer. And then we sent a bunch of games to Canada at our Canada Center, and they got held up at the border for a while, and we had a problem with DPD in Germany, where they had mailed out maybe 100 games to people that they left them at local pack stations and were supposed to give them a slip to tell them you can go to this pack station and pick it up, and then they never left the people the slips.
Oh, that's lovely.
And then all of those games returned to us, and then all of those customers were going, "Where's my game?" And I'm going, "Well, we mailed them to you, but they returned, so can you verify your address?" And then people thought we were lying to them, right? Because they're saying, "Well, Cool Mini delivered me my game last week," and I'm going, "Well, we're a company of two people, not."
Please note that I'm not Cool Mini. You know,
right.
I first of all, yeah, I'm not Amazon. I'm not Cool Mini.
Right.
Something has gone wrong.
Right. You know, and we just tried to explain to people, when you hire a third party to do your fulfillment, you're still on the hook, right? So people were still posting to us, and they were saying, "Where's my stuff? Where's my stuff?" And I was trying to explain to them, "Look, they're 8 hours ahead of me. I'm sending a request today. Already night where they are. They'll get their request tomorrow. They'll send me an answer. I'll get it, and it'll be a new day, and I'll send it to you." And we lose 3-4 days just that quickly. You know, and people would say, "Well, just ship me another one." And we'd say, "Well, but your other one is lost somewhere, and we need to find it first, right, and bring it home before we can mail you another." So those were probably the biggest challenges, is mostly shipping related, and it really just boils down to you have to do your homework. You have to pick a very reliable shipping.
I've been very lucky. I've never had anybody so far tell me they didn't get something and have it turn out that it was any kind of bullshit scam. I have never had anybody work me on a product and go, "Oh, I didn't get it. You need to send another one." And it turns out they were, you know, just angling for a second copy or something. I've been really lucky that way. I'd fall for it. Hello, Internet. If you try that on Beckett Publishing, we will probably fall for it the first time. Anyway.
I think gamers in general are pretty understanding and pretty reasonable people, right? I mean, they're gamers too, and I think they're, you know.
I'll disagree with that a little bit, but
well, your problem, Jared, was Irish customers.
Irish customers.
Irish. Well, I just remember that every time you had somebody freak out about the mailing costs, and then accuse you, send you an angrygram saying that you're clearly trying to make money off the packing and shipping. It was always somebody from Ireland who was incensed.
Oh no, it was oh yeah. You know, Sean, because with Dagon Industries, I make Cthulhu Mythos-themed products, and for the longest time, I ran my own website. But then, long story short, I wound up not running my own site and having my online store through a friend of ours' webpage, and one of the biggest. Arkham Bazaar, and one of the biggest challenges I came across, everybody was like, "You're a thief, you're charging so much." I'm like, "Listen here, a-hole, I am charging exactly what the post office is charging. You know, plus $1 just for my time, effort, and, you know,
the box, and the box.
You know, I am not ripping you off. You have a problem with the shipping. Talk to the post office. Talk to your government about the tariffs. Talk to your, you know, it's like it's. But they made it seem like that I was some kind of highwayman. Stand and deliver. Give me your money. You know.
or lupins. You know, whatever. But yeah, I like the.
I already got all their lupins. You know.
Yeah, every once in a while.
I mean, shipping costs are outrageous, and they don't get any cheaper. And you know, I try to explain to people, anybody that tells you that they're delivering you a game for $9 anywhere, the United States, anywhere in the world, they're lying to you. You cannot ship anything 5 pounds for $9.
No.
You're subsidizing that, and you're taking money out of the sale of your product to do that. And we knew that going in, and we planned for it. But I think a lot of people don't know that and don't plan for it, and I think a lot of people on Kickstarter get hurt by that. And it's very easy to do, and I think it's created, unfortunately, a lot of people that truly believe that games are free to ship, and you know, and they're not, especially when small publishers are doing it.
You mean they're not? You know, it's like, yeah, again, we have the same pride, the same problem that people are like, oh, blah blah blah. It's like, I'm a one-person show. This is a hobby business. I'm not, you know, I'm not Hasbro. Okay.
Well, one of my favorites is always Amazon ships it for blank, and I'm like, really? You're going to compare me to Jeff Bezos? Okay. One of the things that I am really excited about when it comes to RPGs and the print-on-demand stuff is that Drive-Thru managed to create a printer on the European continent for their print-on-demand, which I thought was a brilliant move, so that they, you know, you order it in Germany, it's printed in, I don't know, France or England, and it only has that far to go. It skips moving that half a pound or a pound book across the big water. and that's where all of it hurts. Their other outlet, I think, is a printer in Australia. And okay, maybe it's not mainland Asia or Japan, but that's still pretty good. That cuts off a third of the planet. Getting your product to you. That is one of the most. That's one of the things that just kills people. That we have a global market, but we do not have necessarily a global economical system for globally shipping our stuff outside of PDFs.
Sean, can you tell us? Do you know of? It was Greg, correct? The creator. Was it Greg?
Gordon.
I don't know why I've been thinking Greg this whole time. So Gordon, just quickly, do you know of any fictional or other board game inspirations for the creation of the Posthuman game at all from him, or all came?
I don't. I'm sure he has some literary ones. I personally just am not sure.
Okay. No, I didn't know what you knew on that one. But here's an important question because we've kind of talked about this. Let's see. Because you kind of talked about it. So do you think that board games could tell stories as well as RPGs?
I do.
Like paper pencil?
I do. I think theme plays an important part in that. And it's something that I'm very passionate about in all the games we do. I want them to be highly immersive in theme. I want you to feel like you're set in that time period for the hour or 2 hours that you're sitting at the table. I want you to feel full immersion. It's a huge part of basically all of Mr. B Games products, and I hope to continue to always do that.
It's just not that immersive when you're the shoe, the top hat, or the iron.
That's very true. But, I wouldn't be here without that game.
I don't think any of us would be without
Absolutely.
Monopoly, Clue, Waterworks, Uno, Mealborn, all that kind of stuff from the 70s. Stratego. And also to tell the folks, we talked a little bit about the mechanics. A lot of the mechanics of the game. So we have a tile component. We have a tile mechanic for the game. We have a card component for the game. We have even a board, part of the game. We have lots of chits, people's encounters. So we have a lot. So it seems like probably a lot of the game is basically the cards and the tiles are probably the biggest mechanic of the game. I would say, right? Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. A lot of pieces. You get a lot of value. Now, the way the Kickstarter came, folks, was the Kickstarter has the core game, plus there is a expansion, the Defiant expansion. So if you were part of the Kickstarter, you got both. Now, if you want to buy the game, you have the game itself, the core game, plus the expansion is available too. So now that I know that pretty much all the Kickstarter people have pretty much got their orders now, right? You don't have any more lingering, or I would assume everybody's got their game now off the Kickstarter. So now you should have it go. You have it going out to retail stores now. Is it in? Do distributors have it? So could somebody go out to their local store and get the game or buy the game?
Absolutely. In the U.S., you could order it from any of your friendly local game shops. All the distributors have access to it. And,
would you name drop a few distributors just in case? Because I know people will go into stores to their brick and mortar and say, "I'd like to get this," and they go, "Oh, those guys don't have it." I've had people, kind of get blown off by some folks who just don't want to open up their buyer's guide. But could you name a couple of distributors in the States or in Europe where people could reference their brick and mortar guy to make those purchases?
Sure. Alliance, ACD, GTS, PhD. Those are any of those guys, and there's a few others as well. But any of those guys should be able to get it for you.
Okay. Now, besides your local game store, is it available? Do people have it available online? Like, do you have it available on your website? Is it available on Amazon? Who might online have? So people don't have a local game store that they can't get to.
Right.
Could people order it online? And where could they do that?
Absolutely. I've seen it on Amazon. You can definitely get it on Amazon. You can also get it at Fun Again, Cool Stuff. Those guys.
Okay.
I'm sure a few of the other online guys carry it as well. But.
So basically all the major players in the board game online industry, you could get it from, like you said, Fun Again, Cool Stuff, Amazon, which is good. Okay, cool. What is the so folks know, what is the retail of the core game?
$64.99.
$64.99. And what is the retail of the expansion?
$29.99.
$29.99. Okay, so $64.99 and then $29.99. Now, I know the app. So you said it's going to be an app game that they're going to be doing, the electronic. It's going to be like an app for, like, say, an iPad or Android tablet. Yep. You said. Okay.
Yeah, and they'll eventually release it both Google Play Store and the through iTunes as well.
Okay, so it's going to be solely be an app. It's not going to be like on something you could get for your PC or your Xbox. It's just going to be an app game right now.
Right. Now they may do some kind of a PC where you can play it like on a Steam type app. They may do that like as an early download or something like that. In the beta probably.
Okay, cool. Now, do you know if they're going to do, because you said that the electronic game is going to be a little bit different from the analog game. Now, do you know if there's any intention to do basically a digital version of the analog game, so you could basically play it online? Because again, you have these situations, because it's very popular now, all these Roll D20 and all these other online game playing tools for people who can't get together. Do you know if there's any intention to do something like that, to where you could actually play the board game on your computer with, say, people around the world, because say you can't, say you don't have a group locally? Do you know if there's anything in the works for that, or nothing that you know of?
We've talked to a few people, but we don't have anything. We haven't started down that road. But we're at least looking into that option and trying to find people that can, potentially do that we can partner up with. It's something that we would definitely love to do with the game.
Yeah, because that'd be cool. Because I would love us to be able to do an episode of Podcast at Ground Zero, us all playing online. So just
that's cool.
One other question I'd like to ask: would you ever consider, or is there any thought about going back and doing a Kickstarter to create individualized minis for the Meeple?
Yeah, we have talked about that quite a bit. I know that was a thing during the campaign where. We went from the cardboard token to the Meeple. A lot of people thought we should go to miniature, and it was just to do miniatures is just such an undertaking.
Yes, yes, I agree completely.
Cost is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. So we wanted. I believe that's in the future for Posthuman. I think there'll be a miniatures, some kind of expansion for this that will include miniatures, and I just don't know when that's going to happen, right? There's so many different moving pieces going on right now with the studio.
Understood.
And, but I think it's on everybody's radar, and it's definitely something everybody wants to do.
I think Sandy Peterson and his guys over at Cthulhu Wars made a really smart decision scaling all of their game pieces at 28mm scale. So even though they built all these Cthulhu game pieces for the game, they were all usable as miniatures at standard, sort of fantasy gaming scale. So the miniatures people signed up for it. They could have given it. A lot of them just could have given a crap about the cardboard box with the rules in it. All they wanted was a giant pile of new, interesting miniatures to paint, to add to their collection. And certainly, if you scale your miniatures to whatever the 32 or 28mm, whatever the standard, fantasy and skirmishing size is, you might, you might get sales from people who just want a post-apocalyptic miniature. Have no interest at all in playing the board game, but they'll take you up on the minis. That's always an option to consider when it happens. I hope it happens, because I do love a nice sexy playing piece. That's always that is always awesome when you can get them.
And one more question. Since Scott talked about maybe doing a Kickstarter for miniatures in the future, is there any plans, or do they have developed or plan to develop any more expansions for the game in the future?
Absolutely. So I think I've talked with the guys on Mighty Box quite a bit. So I think the next plan is to incorporate the next expansion to work together with miniatures. So we'll do some kind of a campaign that is an expansion and probably miniatures. And I don't know if we'll do 2 different campaigns for it or combine it into one, but there's definitely plans for what happens once you get to the fortress. And
they keep promising us that 3D printing is going to revolutionize the minis business. So, maybe you'll be the guy who gets to find out.
Well, it's all the machines and the manufacturer become cost effective, All right, so we're going to wrap up. We've been on for about an hour. I know Sean has other commitments he has to go to, but again, folks, we had Sean Brown from Mr. B Games, the co-producer of the Posthuman board game we've talked about. Is a post-apocalyptic board game, cooperative to an extent, but also cutthroat to an extent. Also, you can play one to 4 players with the core. The expansion gives you additional 5 to 6 players to go along with that. It is available. You could get it through your local favorite local game store, the FLGS. It is also available online. Oh, what's he showing there? What did you just show there? Is that a promo card, or is that something I didn't get?
That is one of the weapons. I was just throwing it up there for anybody watching.
Oh, okay.
Pickaxe.
Oh, I thought you were throwing something that I didn't have. I'm like, what, you bastard! But, I must have everything.
You engage the collector gene, and people get hurt.
Exactly.
So, anyway, as I said, I have the game myself. I haven't had a chance to even sit down and play it yet, but I will eventually, and I'll talk about it more on the show. But Sean, thank you for being on the show. Like I said, from the time this came out, I talked to you at Gen Con. I really wanted to get you on to share this and talk to the folks that watch the show about this game, because again, there's post-apocalyptic stuff, and most of it, is, like you said, is zombie stuff out there. So this is something different. So it's very refreshing to get a different type of post-apocalyptic game out there, and I wanted to share that with all the folks. We asked you some questions. So again, thank you very much for your time. We really do appreciate having you on the show.
Well, thanks for having us, guys. Jared, Scott, I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time, and thanks for doing what you guys do, and I really appreciate it.
Excellent.
By having you on the show, then we don't even have to come up with a topic for this show.
I know, it was easy, but
saved us all the heavy lifting.
Nice.
Do you plan on being at Gen Con again this year, Sean?
Absolutely.
See you there.
Now that the game is out, so are you guys going to have scheduled events for the game as well?
Yep.
Oh, cool. Very nice.
Both Origins and Gen Con. So.
Origins and Gen Con. Okay, yep. Very, very good. Okay, so, folks, this has been Podcast at Ground Zero, Episode 54, the Posthuman board game. I, the Apocalypse Nerd Jared Wallace, Sean Brown from Mr. B Games, and Adam Baum-Glancy. Thank you all for being with us here. Thank you for spending your evening with us. And again, if you're watching it on the video or later is the audio, again, thank you. We'll have another show planned in probably about 2 weeks or so. We try to do every 2 to 3 weeks. I got some ideas for another show. We may come back to me and Scott have been talking about getting some of the creator, maybe with the creator of the Twilight 2000 game, on to talk to him. Scott, I've also had some people pinging me lately, some recent followers asking me about, when are you going to come back to Gamma World and talk about Gamma World stuff? So we may have to come back to Gamma World. And
may have to.
I'm totally opposed to that. I don't want to ever.
That's going to be a real arm twist for you to have to talk about Gamma World.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it at all. I hate that game. It's disgusting. But again,
are you sure? Can you handle the additions wars?
I can handle that. Okay. I've mastered that. So again,
I would be totally tickled if we could figure out, go dig around and find the guy who wrote Legion of Gold or something and bring him on.
So, all right, folks. So Sean had to sign off, so he said goodbye because we're rambling. So
yeah.
So for Sean, for Scott, Podcast at Ground Zero. Thank you and good night.